Welcome to the 35th meeting of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. Pursuant to Standing Order 108-2 and to the motion adopted by the committee on September 18th, the committee is meeting as part of its study of Canada's capacity to deport foreign nationals with criminal records. Today we have the good fortune to welcome two ministers and the officials accompanying them. That would be Minister Gary Ananasangari, Minister of Public Safety, and Minister Lina Mitlej-Diab, Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. The officials accompanying them are Aaron O'Gorman and Aaron McCrory, President and Vice Presidents at Canada Border Services Agency. Also from the Department of Citizenship and Immigration, Ted Gallivan. Welcome to all of you. And first of all, I would invite the Minister of Public Safety to present his opening remarks, followed by the Minister of Immigration. Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and let me just begin by welcoming some of the new members to the committee, as well as our newest member of Parliament, Dolly Begum. Really good to have everyone here. And I want to thank the committee for this opportunity to join you today. I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathered on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. La protection de la population canadienne.
Protecting Canadians' safety and maintaining the integrity of our immigration system are top priorities for our government.
Central to this is ensuring our borders remain secure and that immigration and border policies are applied fairly, transparently, and in compliance with Canadian laws and international legal obligations. Our government is committed to ensuring that people who no longer meet the requirements to remain here, including those posing threats to public safety or national security, are removed in accordance with the law and supporting processes. I'd like to take a moment to discuss the role of the Minister of Public Safety on this matter. The Minister is responsible for the administration of immigration enforcement provisions under the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. These include the power to examine individuals entering Canada, as well as the power to investigate, arrest, detain, and remove inadmissible foreign nationals and permanent residents from the country. Finally, the Minister also has the responsibility to shape national security, transborder criminality, and organized criminality policies and provisions, and the non-delegable power to grant relief from these efforts. The CBSA prioritizes the removal of individuals who pose a risk to public safety. In 2025, the agency achieved a significant milestone, removing over 22,500 inadmissible persons, a record for a single year. Nearly 1,200 of these removals were due to serious concerns related to criminality, national security, human rights abuses, and organized crime. Over the past 5 years, removals on serious grounds have nearly doubled, reflecting the CBSA's commitment and work to mitigating public safety threats. The agency is actively combating criminal activities such as extortion by collaborating with law enforcement to remove individuals who are involved in these activities that who are terrorizing our communities. These efforts have had an impact in areas such as British Columbia's Lower Mainland, Edmonton, Winnipeg, and the GTA, where communities have welcomed the disruption of such networks. Cases involving individuals who pose a risk to public safety are referred to the Immigration and Refugee Board, which decides whether to issue removal orders. A removal order does not automatically result in immediate action. One significant barrier is the lack of cooperation from certain foreign governments, which delay issuing necessary travel documents. This impacts the efficiency of removals, especially for those cases subject to enforceable orders. We are working with these countries, and some of these efforts are bearing fruit. Public understanding is also key. While not every removal is tied to an immediate threat, those that pose a threat to Canadians can be arrested and detained under immigration legislation. The agency relies on close collaboration both domestically and internationally to achieve its goals. Public tips submitted through the CBSA's Border Watch line remain a vital tool for identifying threats, reinforcing community engagement, and improving outcomes. Investments under the border plan have also allowed the CBSA to expand its resources. The agency has hired additional enforcement case officers to support removals and reduce backlogs. The CBSA is also hiring 1,000 new officers to strengthen frontline operations, including inland investigations and removals. Tous les acteurs de portefeuille.
All players in the public safety portfolio, and in fact across all government, take their mandate to protect Canadians extremely seriously. The agency's successes reflect the power of collaboration.
In closing, I want to acknowledge the dedication of CBSA staff and their federal partners. The agency's work, supported by law enforcement and international collaboration, is vital to protecting Canadians and maintaining a fair, transparent immigration system. Encore une fois, merci.
Once again, thank you for this opportunity to appear before you today, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. Madame la Ministre.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Diab. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm here with my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety. The motion before this committee reflects a legitimate public concern. Canada's immigration system welcomes those who contribute to this country and keeps out those who could do harm. We are committed to maintaining that balance, which is fundamental to Canadians' safety and trust.
IRCC is a part of the first line of defense from the moment a foreign national applies for a visa or a status. They're subject to a multi-layered coordinated screening process. Officers assess their identity, eligibility, and admissibility under the Immigration and Refugee Act. Officers have authority to refuse entry to foreign nationals with a history of criminality, organized crime, or human rights violations. When concerns arise, we seek input from our partners in law enforcement, border security, and intelligence. We're taking a more proactive, intelligence-driven approach to the screening process. This includes continuously improving how we flag cases, share data with our partners, and track status in Canada to support more timely action. Notre objectif est de détecter.
Our goal is to identify risks as early as possible so that we reduce the pressure on enforcement later. Safeguards exist at several stages of the process. We are strengthening preventative measures at the visa stage, including tightening requirements and improving the way we verify applications in higher risk streams. Once a foreign national is admitted to Canada, if they are found to have misrepresented their criminal history on their application, their case may be referred for enforcement. When other inadmissibility concerns are identified, the CBSA will investigate and take appropriate enforcement action, which may include removing someone from the country. The law is clear. Non-citizens convicted of a serious crime are inadmissible in Canada, and those sentenced to 6 months or more of imprisonment have no right to appeal to the Immigration Appeal Division. I appreciate the committee's work and look forward to our discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister. Thank you to both of you. We will now begin with the questions from Member, 6 minutes to Mr. Caputo.
Thank you, ministers, for being here. Minister Diab, how did an IRGC terrorist get a visa to come to Canada?
Thank you very much for that question. Let me be clear. We have taken strong action as a government to hold the IRGC to account. While I cannot comment on any individual case for privacy reasons, our government has been clear and consistent. We will always put the safety of Canadians first.
Minister, I don't want talking points. Minister Anandasangri, do you agree with that? Yes or no?
Again, I'm unable to speak on a specific case, but I will confirm, Mr. Caputo, no individuals representing Iran were at the Congress in Vancouver today.
That's not what I asked. I asked how an IRGC member got a visa. Now, you say privacy prevents you from telling us about the case. I have a copy of the Privacy Act here. Could you please tell me what section of the Privacy Act shields terrorists from you answering questions about how they got a visa? Minister Diab, which section, please?
Again, let me be clear. No IRGC member has been admitted to Canada.
Minister, let me be clear. Which section?
I don't have those documents on me.
You are the minister in charge. 3 questions were asked to you in question period. Not once did the Liberal government allow you to get up and answer those questions. So I'll ask Minister Anandasangri, which section, let me be clear, which section shields an Iranian terrorist from privacy? What section precludes you, Minister, from answering questions?
Mr. Caputo, as a general rule, we do not speak about individual cases. It is part and parcel of the work that we do to ensure that privacy interests are protected. I will also say that over the last number of years, it is customary that ministers do not specifically discuss cases which may or may not be before the courts. In the situation that you described, there's a potential for litigation.
When was the last time a terrorist got a visa to Canada? I don't know when. Minister Diab, when did this matter first come to your attention?
Today is Thursday. The day in question.
You don't know when this matter came to your attention?
Well, I mean, it was this is the week that we're talking about. Again, let me just say it was our government that designated the IRGC
after
as
Conservatives asked you to do so. I'm not asking about the designation. We've called on your government to do it for years, so let's not pretend that you have the moral high ground here, Minister.
Well, the Conservatives were in power prior to the Liberal government, and they.
Minister, if you want a timeline about when planes were shot down and what have you, we can get into that, but that's for another day, Minister. Did you sign or know about this visa, yes or no?
I certainly did not sign any documents.
Did you know about the visa, yes or no?
Again, no IRGC member has been admitted to Canada. We will not comment on individual cases. And Mr. Caputo, you are a gentleman of the court. You were, or maybe still are, a member of barrister of an association. You practiced law for a long time. You understand the reasoning why we are unable to comment on particular specific cases.
No, we are in Parliament.
No, I will. We know each other well enough now that once we feel and observe that the conversations overlap, we know that the interpretation cannot properly, and therefore there are some that can't follow the conversation. So I'll just ask everyone not to overlap the conversations of others so that we can all follow the discussion.
Yes, and I took an oath just as other lawyers did, Minister, and one of those oaths was to the rule of law, in my view, and the rule of law demands transparency. There are Canadians here who suffered under the IRGC. If you will not tell us exactly what you know, will you table your briefing notes for today? Yes or no?
Member, listen, you and I know, for all of us in this room, the safety and security of Canadians is our priority. That is the reason why we are in these positions
I get
of
that,
trust.
Minister. I get that, Minister. Here's the problem. It can be a priority, and there can still be a colossal mess-up. I've asked how it happened. Privacy Act. Did you see something? No. Privacy Act, I guess, doesn't apply there. So I've asked repeatedly where in the Privacy Act this is. It took an independent journalist, a whistleblower, to bring this about to both of you ministers. Here's the problem. The TRP visa is there to overcome inadmissibility. He was not admissible. Somebody gave him the visa. Who gave him the visa? Just a name.
Again, Mr. Caputo, the member in question was not admitted to Canada.
Oh, I
no
thought you couldn't comment for
IRGC
privacy reasons.
As
Oh,
I
so we can
said,
comment on that for privacy reasons, but other things we
I'm
can't.
sorry, MP Caputo. The minister was trying to answer. You cut her off, which I let go the first time, but this can't happen all the time, so I'll invite the minister to provide her answer.
we've taken strong action to hold the IRGC to account. We will continue to do that. We will continue to act in the best interest of Canadians. That is our priority, and that is what we will be doing.
How many have you expelled? A number. How many have you expelled? You're the minister. You should know this. Is it 1 or 2? How many have you expelled from the IRGC in the last year? Is it 1 or 2?
I don't do deportation.
How many, Minister Nandasangri, how many have been expelled? 1 or 2?
Mr. Caputo, I've answered these questions prior, you're aware. We have had over 17,800 applications that were reviewed for
I
potential
asked
inadmissibility.
Minister, we have 5 seconds left. How many have you expelled?
239 visas have been canceled.
I asked for expulsions.
I'm sorry, this is all the time we've got for this first
How many expulsions,
intervention.
Minister?
We'll come back
How many expulsions?
to others in a moment, but first we need to turn to MP Housefather for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, ministers, for being here. And I think it is important, just for clarity. Mehdi Taj, who was the head of the Iranian Football Federation, who allegedly was a commander in the IRGC, was denied entry, according to reports, at Pearson Airport, which was the proper thing to do, because such a man should not have been admissible to Canada, and he was not allowed to enter Canada, reportedly, according to the press. Minister Nandasangri, you'd agree with me that hypothetically, any IRGC commander should not be allowed to enter Canada, correct?
I would say in general terms, Mr. Housefather, senior members of the IRGC, members of the regime, are inadmissible to Canada. There are, and if I may just continue what I was explaining to Mr. Caputo, 17,800 applications were reviewed for potential inadmissibility for those who wanted to come to Canada. 239 visas were canceled by IRGC because of potential links. 174 investigations have been opened by the CBSA. 79 of these investigations have been concluded by the CBSA. So we're still investigating about 63. So these are for people from the outside who are trying to come to Canada.
100% understood, Minister. And just wanted to clarify again, the CBSA at the border is still capable, correct? Even if somebody was in possession of a visa, to deny entry if the CBSA determines that they're inadmissible to Canada and should not be entering the country, correct?
CBSA has a critical role in this. So if, for example, an individual visas were issued, CBSA still at the border has certain authorities. They are very specific authorities under IRPA. And oftentimes it will require referral to the Immigration Refugee Board, who makes a determination.
And there's been a lot of speculation, not only speculation, but claims made in Canada related to the number of IRGC members in the country who should not be here. The number 700 and some odd has been floated. Now, as to my understanding, there is no basis whatsoever for that number. And I'd ask for a clarification as to where that number came from and what is the truth with respect to that number, because it's been repeated over and over in the House of Commons. So you or Ms. O'Gorman, I'm happy to...
Yeah. Let me just begin and ask President O'Gorman to answer. Look, the 700 number has come up in my many engagements with Iranian Canadians. There are a number of lists that have been floated. And what I can say is every single name that has been brought forward to the Canada Border Service Agency have been reviewed, have been extensively studied, and conclusions have been made on whether they're admissible or not. Right now, we are tracking 32 persons who have been reported inadmissible, and essentially we are tracking 26 individuals for removal. And maybe
and just for again further clarity, so that nobody is confused about this, Mr. Minister, the names that have been submitted to you by the different Iranian organizations or other organizations who have claimed that these people are IRGC higher level and inadmissible, you have looked, or not you personally, of course, the agency has looked at each and every one of those names, correct?
These are not political decisions. These are decisions and processes by Canada Border Service Agency, which is an independent agency. Their primary responsibility is the safety and security of Canadians and to implement our laws. And in that regard, yes, every single name that has gone to them, it continues to go. There is a phone line that individuals can contact. The number of meetings I've had, I've shared that information with the community and members of the community. And those names continue to come in, and CBSA reviews those names extensively and does not just open source research, but deeper dives into those names that are in their possession, and the conclusions, essentially are made by CBSA.
And I have one last question, Mr. Gallivan. This is to you. So, in the event ever that a visa was issued erroneously to any hypothetical individual, clear instructions following that, I presume, would be issued related to clarifying that if somebody was given a visa that should not have been, that this should never be reproduced, and you would give strict instructions to your team not to do that again, correct?
Both at a tactical level, we can review the facts available to us continuously throughout somebody's voyage, and absolutely this shouldn't happen again. And so leading up to the FIFA games themselves, it's absolutely my accountability to make sure that we don't find ourselves in this situation again.
Thank you. I assume that's my time, Mr. Chair.
Merci, Monsieur le Député. Bravo pour votre feu.
Thank you, and congratulations on your first intervention at the committee here. You took less time than was allocated to you. So, Mr. Deschênes, you have 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good day, everyone. I'm pleased to be with you. Mr. Gallivan, I'd like you to come back to what you were just saying. So what was happening should never happen again. You acknowledged that an error was committed when the visa was granted to a former commander of the IRGC. So here's what I would say, Mr. Chair. Stopping a high-risk file at the right time is ideal. So acting more swiftly would have been better. I can comment on things that are public. So, of course, he was allowed to take the plane, and then a change was made. So in my view, ideally, first of all, the high-risk profile would have been identified and a decision would have been made as quickly as possible, which would require us to have all of the right information. Minister Diab, in 2022, when there was the access interdiction for the IRGC, when this was announced under Minister Ananda Sangari, the minister said that we did have the information to enforce what was needed. So that was also applied to everyone who was part of the IRGC from 2004. So, Minister Diab, how can you explain that a visa was granted to someone who used to be in the force?
Okay, merci pour ce que...
Thank you for this question, Mr. Deschênes. As I have already said, Canada continues to hold the Iranian regime responsible. And as you know, the Government of Canada has designated the IRGC as a terrorist organization. We are unable to comment on individual cases. I must stop you, Minister Diab, because yes, you can comment. We're talking about 3 Iranian citizens. You do not need to protect the privacy of Iranian citizens who are affiliated with a terrorist organization. What you need to do is protect the safety of Canadians. So, yes, you can comment on what was done. So I will ask the question to you again. How is it that a visa was granted to a former member of the IRGC, even though, as Mr. Galvin was explaining, and as Minister Ananda Sangari was explaining, you must have a list of who these people are? How do you explain that when the person arrived in Toronto and the request had already been placed, that they were stopped then?
Vous êtes correct.
Well, you are correct. The safety of Canadians is always the priority. We have a system, and there are many steps. So before travel happens, there is a step, and the system did work as intended in that case because that individual did not enter into Canada. They arrived in Toronto with a visa. So you're right, the person did not stay because they left after arriving in Toronto. But how is it that the system even granted a visa even though this individual was supposed to be prohibited from entering?
Alors,
As I said, I can't comment. Yes, Ms. Diab, you can comment. There's nothing holding you back. Mr. Deschênes, since we like you so much and since we would like to invite you back to our committee, we have to hold you back from cutting each other off because people listening to interpretation are depending on interpretation services. Minister Diab, so in this case, there was an individual, that is true. That individual was forbidden from entering Canada. They were not admissible. But they did receive a visa. Why was a visa granted to someone who is inadmissible on Canadian territory? As I said, there are multiple steps, and the visa was canceled. When the individual arrived in Canada, the visa was withdrawn. The visa was granted, Minister Diab, so there is a problem in the system. There are members, former members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps who are suspected of killing 33,000 individuals in the last protests, and they are clearly forbidden in Canada. And in spite of all of this, when it comes to your system, a member of this IRGC Corps applied for a visa and received one. So are your lists not up to date?
on travaille
We work closely with our colleagues, with the RCMP, but also with Public Safety Canada, also with CSIS, as well as with domestic and international partners. And we have lists not only regarding Immigration Canada, but also for public safety. Do I have time remaining? Minister Ananda Sangari, can you give further detail on our lists?
Merci pour
Thank you for the question.
What list are you referring to specifically?
La liste des membres des gardiens de la Révolution islamique, c'est
The list of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps members. We'll have to wait until the next round to hear the answer to that question. Before that, we will go to Mr. Lloyd for 5 minutes, please.
Being here. Minister Diab, was the individual in question related to this case issued a temporary resident visa or a temporary resident permit?
Okay, let me be clear.
It's a simple question.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Temporary resident visa or temporary resident permit?
Again, as I said, I cannot comment on the individual person in
This is a very
question,
simple
but
question.
no IRGC member has been admitted to Canada.
Was it a temporary resident visa or a temporary resident permit?
I believe I've already responded
For what
to that.
reason? Why can you not answer the question, Minister?
Again, as we said, we cannot comment on a specific case in
Well,
question. What is
For the
important
benefit
is
of the
that
Canadians who are
the
listening,
individual
I've got the
did
floor.
not
Thank you,
come
Minister.
into Canada.
For the benefit of Canadians listening, a temporary resident visa is required for any Iranian citizen to enter Canada. Many do on a daily basis. A temporary resident permit is required for anyone who is found inadmissible to come to Canada for criminal reasons or other reasons. This, according to the Raoul Wallenberg Center, this individual was an IRGC intelligence commander from 1979 onwards. I find it interesting. Liberal member said an alleged IRGC member. It's been well reported they were an intelligence commander in the IRGC. They would have had to have been issued a temporary resident permit. That is a special permit that is from your department. So, Minister, did your department know that this person was inadmissible to Canada before you issued them a permit?
Again, I'm not going to be commenting on an individual case for privacy reasons. What I will say again is the individual had no status to come into Canada by the time they landed. They left. They are back in their own country. We are very much looking forward to learning what happened in this case to ensure it does not happen in the
Minister,
FIFA games that are happening in the month of June
I
and
used to
July.
work for the Immigration Department when Jason Kenney was the minister at the time, and in cases where you have high-profile people coming into this country, which certainly we're talking about FIFA here, an official with IRGC connections, there's currently a very real war going on in Iran. Somebody this high-profile coming into this country with known IRGC connections would have had to have been issued a temporary resident permit. Are you saying, Minister, that you received no memo, that you were not involved in the decision at all in letting this inadmissible person enter Canada?
So these decisions are not political. So I would, as the minister, am a political person.
So you're saying you're not accountable, Minister?
That I'm definitely accountable, but I would not have been part of that decision-making process.
Were you aware that this decision had been made before the visas were issued,
Again,
Minister?
what I can tell you is that the individual was that it was annulled prior to the individual landing. The individual
Minister,
returned home.
I think we can all appreciate that once it became very newsworthy that your officials took the right course of action in annulling this person's visa. We want to know at this committee, and Canadians want to know, particularly from the Iranian diaspora community, the Persian community, is why did your department issue this IRGC-linked official a visa in the first place? Did you know about the decision before the visa was issued? Yes or no?
I did not know about the decision. What I can tell you is that the individual, the document was annulled prior to the individual landing in any Canadian territory. The individual returned back to their own country. We will ensure that for the FIFA games coming in June and July, that we learn from this. Again, I've been clear months and months ago, even for the FIFA games, anybody buying a ticket for soccer is not going to be guaranteed to be able to come in.
That, Minister.
Yeah.
If this IRGC-linked official had been allowed into Canada, would the government have been obligated to arrest him for being a member of a recognized terrorist entity?
Again, I would look to,
President O'Gorman, can you answer that question? Could they have been arrested for being a member of a listed terrorist entity if they had been allowed to enter Canada?
So I'll speak generally about CBSA's authorities. If somebody comes to Canada and they are inadmissible and they have documentation, we make the representation before the Immigration and Refugee Board. We make the case around inadmissibility,
presumably if they
and they
had
make
a
decision.
TRP, you would have been aware of their criminal connections. If they had received a TRP, kind of would have been odd for you to arrest somebody who the government gave permission to come, knowing that they had a criminal record. So they would have had to have received a temporary resident visa. And if you had found out they were criminal then, you could have arrested them. Could you not?
So a short answer, please.
The process at the border is our officers determine inadmissibility or form an opinion of inadmissibility, and they make that before the Immigration and Refugee Board, who makes the decision.
Merci pour cet échange, Madame.
Thank you for that exchange. 5 minutes to Ms. Dandurand, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to our witnesses for being with us today to discuss this issue. I would like to ask a technical question to Ms. O'Gorman regarding removals processes. Could you please explain the different steps of the removal process when there are foreign nationals with a criminal record? Can you tell us about the criteria that are used, whether or not they are admissible for removal? And can you tell us about the wait times?
C'est une question.
Okay, that is a rather technical question, so I will respond in English just to make sure that my words are accurate.
For individuals who are inadmissible to Canada, who have gone through the process, they enter our removals inventory. We prioritize people with serious inadmissibilities, which can include criminality, membership in certain organizations. And so those are at the top of the list. And as the minister said at the outset, we have returned many people who have criminality. Most of the individuals in our removals inventory do not have criminality. About 2% do. So when we say we prioritize them, there's a small number, but they are our top priority. And our officers are looking for them. And if we find them and we believe they're a flight risk, we will detain them until such time as we remove them. So individuals have a right to recourse. So we actually also have to make the case for detention before the Immigration and Refugee Board as well. And so from our lens of protecting public safety, we make that case. Often it's upheld, sometimes it's not. And then we undertake other actions if we believe there's a public safety risk, but we're constantly reevaluating.
Merci beaucoup, c'est très clair.
Thank you very much. That's very clear. How about in cases where foreign nationals have a criminal record? Can you now tell us about the main obstacles that slow down the administrative process? How can it be improved, and how can you overcome those obstacles?
There are several rights to recourse. So an individual, for example, if they have a refugee claim, and that claim is not upheld by the Immigration and Refugee Board, they can, in most cases, have recourse to to another division within the Immigration and Refugee Board. They can have recourse to the federal court. If the federal court does not overturn the previous decisions, they have a right to a pre-removal risk assessment, and that's conducted by the Department of Immigration. If there is significant criminality or public security risks associated with that individual, there will be a danger opinion, which is to say they may be seen to be at risk by being returned, but if they are deemed to be a danger to Canada, we can return them notwithstanding those risks that they might face. So a lot of steps, and when you have a large volume, they move at pace. And then there are some countries who do not provide travel documents to their citizens. We've been working very hard. We've had some very good luck, or the hard work has paid off with several countries, some countries, and so we are now receiving travel documents, and we are working through those apace with the individuals in our inventory, but there remain some countries that are recalcitrant in that regard.
Est-ce que, et peut-être Monsieur
Also, perhaps Minister Ananda Sangri, you could talk to C-12, the bill that received royal assent. Is that a bill that can mitigate the issues mentioned by Ms. O'Gorman?
Certainly, there are some provisions in C-12 that will help both IRCC as well as the ability of the CBSA towards removal. There are still safeguards in place, including pre-removal risk assessment for those who are ineligible to seek an asylum claim. The IRCC minister also has broader powers to suspend temporary resident permits that may have been, or TRVs that have been issued to group or to individuals, and those are broader powers that have been bestowed on the Minister of Immigration. What I would say is that from a public safety perspective, the tools have enabled and better focus on asylum claimants who have sought asylum at a timely manner and who are in need of protection, to ensure that the process we have is efficient and is not bogged down by others who may not be genuine asylum seekers, who may be doing this as a last resort to stay in Canada.
Sorry for interrupting. Merci pour cet échange.
Thank you for that discussion. Mr. Deschênes, for 2.5 minutes, please. Thank you, Chair. I would also like to discuss C12, Minister Dia, but when it received royal assent on March 19th, very quickly your department sent this letter to asylum seekers who had submitted a request 1 year before arriving in Canada. And then for all of those who arrived after June 24th, 2020, this letter was heavily criticized because the tone that was taken is misleading, according to many points of view. On the second page, we read, you could be eligible for a pre-removal risk assessment. So it would appear that it is possible for you to request a pre-removal risk assessment. Do you agree that the wording of this letter is misleading and it should be better worded to inform people?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to answer in English. So C12 went through parliamentary process, as you know. It went through quite a few, went through committee, went through the Senate. There was robust debate. It went through a summer, actually. So it was reported by many organizations, the media. We've been clear and transparent from the beginning as to why it was there and what we were going to do. So when the letter was sent, it was part of transparency to let people know who were not eligible, what they can do and not. In terms of the letter itself, as you know, I, as the minister, don't write the letter, but I have the deputy if you want to speak to the contents of the letter. But I think what we're doing has been clear and transparent to Canadians.
Oui, Monsieur Gallivan, sur le libellé,
Mr. Gallivan, regarding the wording, you could be eligible, is that not misleading? Because there is a possibility of the pre-removal risk assessment. Answer. First of all, we will change the wording of any future letter. It was not the intent to lead anyone astray. I think that what is said in the letter is true, but I can understand how it could be interpreted in a misleading way. It was not the intention. Mr. Deschênes, pardon me for cutting you off. Ms. Kirkland now has 5 minutes.
Thank you, ministers, for being here today. I appreciated your 5-minute introduction. You said some things that were very important. Minister Ananas-Angry, you talked about your commitment to things being fair and also transparency. And I think you know that's why we're asking all of these questions today. Minister Diab, you said that the responsibility of IRGC was to keep out those who could do harm. And you said that responsibility, quote, starts from the moment people apply. You've been asked several times this, and you've said that you did not specifically sign off on the temporary resident permit for Mr. Taj, but you know the buck stops with you. I think you know that. So were you briefed at all on Mr. Taj's case at any point prior to the decision of him being granted a TRP?
So thanks for the question. I'm going to answer in the following way in terms to say that
I just wanted to know if you were briefed on it.
Canada does have a robust system that is coordinated.
I'm sorry, Minister, but
Yes.
that is not my question, and I appreciate you answer the question I asked. The question I asked was, were you briefed at all on Mr. Taj's case at any point prior to the decision of him being granted a TRP?
Okay.
Just were you briefed beforehand, yes or no?
Let me just say the individual I will not comment on, but I
don't want you to comment
didn't know
on
the
him.
name of the individual either. So it was not.
Okay, so did you, can I ask you or the Public Safety Minister, either of you personally intervene in this case?
Again, the system is robust where officials.
Yeah, I know that. The system is robust. You know, I know people are working hard. That's not my question. My question is, did either of you intervene at any point in the process? You talked about in your testimony that there are safeguards at several stages. I would hope some of those safeguards would be speaking to the ministers themselves. So that's my question. Did you or Minister Ananasangri did either of you personally intervene in this case? You don't have to say anything about the case, just whether or not you personally intervened.
So if I may just clarify, the process of issuing a TRP is not within the purview of the Minister of Public Safety.
So no, you didn't then, because it's not in your purview.
No,
then.
however, the safeguards that are in place, because there are safeguards in place, is what President O'Gorman spoke about. So once an individual, in broader terms, general terms, is in Canada, the CBSA has broader authorities to intervene. If the individual is inadmissible or does not have the proper documentation, is able to refer the matter to the IRB.
I'm going to interrupt because I think we have that point. Did any of your officials have you ever heard of them? Did they advise against him getting a temporary? Like, you've looked back. Clearly, hopefully you've looked back at this file and at this case. At any point, were you advised against, or did anyone advised against granting him the temporary resident permit before he got it? Ms. Gorman, did you think CBSA at any point advised the ministry that he should not be granted a temporary resident permit?
CBSA officers determine admissibility or make a recommendation. The IRB will determine admissibility in cases where, depending on the circumstance, at the port of entry.
Okay, thank you. I know there are, I respect the work of CBSA officers. I think everyone in this room knows that. I know that they work hard. They work very hard. Very often they make recommendations and they have guidance in terms of what is permitted. And I'd like to know how often IRCC fails to follow CBSA's guidance, Minister Diab. No, my question was for the minister. How often would you say your ministry fails to follow the guidance of CBSA?
We work together, both IRCC, CBSA, CISAs, the security system team domestically work together in a very much coordinated fashion.
Okay, that's great. You work together. It sounds wonderful to say.
And in fact, with C12 and other measures, there will be a lot more info sharing.
I'm sorry, ma'am, just one moment. I have spoken to many CBSA officers over the course of the last 6 months, and I can tell you that more often than not, I hear stories that they see a danger and they get a call from someone in the ministry, either public safety or immigration, usually IRCC, overruling their wise decisions. Why does that happen?
I'm sorry to cut you off. We need to move to MP Polowski for 5 minutes, please.
Well, let me first of all start off by saying the Conservatives are asking rat-tat-tat questions and not giving you a lot of time to reply. Is there anything further you'd like to add to your previous reply, either of you ministers?
And Ms. Kirkland, I completely appreciate the work that you've been doing, especially with CBSA. But I do want to just clarify the role of CBSA. First of all, it's an independent agency, which means that political interference is not something that is part. I'm unable to direct CBSA on a range of issues because they're independent. Secondly, any time issue of danger issues that will pose a risk to Canadian safety that is not in line with IRPA, it is the strictest prerogative of CBSA to enforce those provisions through the Immigration Refugee Board or through other mechanisms. It is not as a routine process, and I would be fully surprised if under any circumstances a minister's office from IRCC is able to override. Having said that, there are specific provisions that enable me to provide stays, and I have, and you would have seen some stuff in the media, I have provided stays on occasion. So there's a number of cases in Quebec where there was an interpretation of, that was misinterpreted and families were being separated. I immediately intervened and issued those stays, and then President O'Gorman gave further direction to her officer. So there's a very specific, narrow set of circumstances in which there could be ministerial discretion, but that's used sparingly, and that is not used in any way from a political perspective. I've been tracking the stays. I've issued stays to a number of bloc MPs, constituents, to I believe even a conservative MP's constituent, but it is used sparingly in the interest of ensuring fairness and equity, and I do want to just clarify it for the record.
Mr. Diab, do you have anything you want to add, or Sub-Minister Cabinet?
Just to clear up in
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The question about IRCC as a decision maker not going with CBSA advice, I think it's important for the committee, Mr. Chair, to know this is in cases where there's an inconclusive finding. So in other words, a case gets referred for security screening. There are clear red lights. In those cases, IRCC decision makers will enforce the red light. There's a second group of yellow lights where the information is inconclusive. It's derogatory information, but it may not meet the legal standard. The latest stat I have is in 46% of the cases, IRCC agents are granting the permission to enter the country despite that information. Having come from CBSA, I testified last week that that's something I want to see very closely because I spent 3.5 years at the Border Service, and I know it's a concern. Now that I'm in this chair, I want to understand the veracity of the 46%, but I believe that goes to the crux of the question.
Any time left? Minister Annis-Sangri, I know you were involved in human rights cases before you went into politics. What kind of concerns me a lot in the testimony we've heard today, and okay, if you're committed a criminal act in Canada, and as a result you're deported from the country, I think we have reasonable trust in the legal system in Canada. But certainly, as we both know, there isn't that same level of trust in other legal systems. So I kind of wonder about when they say when somebody's committed a crime in another country. Well, a lot of countries have corrupt police, corrupt judiciary, and how do we know with that kind of person who's been convicted in a country where we don't really trust the legal system, whether we ought to be sending them back to their country?
Look, we have some very specific laws, especially with respect to senior members of the IRGC and their association with the regime. So we are much more conclusive on those, just because it is a decision of cabinet. They're listed as a terrorist entity under Canadian law. Some number of them have been sanctioned. So an allegation against an individual senior member of the IRGC should be taken at face value. Having said that, routinely, I think CBSA challenges the findings, and that's why we have a process through the IRB where an individual may be able to bring their cases forward with respect
to interrupt, MP Minister. Always a sorry thing to do, but we need to move on to the next slot, which is MP Ao and MP Gill for 5 minutes, please.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to share my time with MP Gill. Okay. So, ministers, you've been trying to hide behind the excuse that you cannot comment on individual cases. But something went wrong, right? We know that the permit was being issued to that person. So, and I think this is a shame, a failure, and also a mistake. So somebody has to take responsibility. And my question is, who has to take the responsibility? And will somebody has to resign? Yes or no?
Look, I will say that the issuance of any temporary resident permits is not within the purview or authorities of the Minister of Public Safety or any one of the agencies.
And from an IRCC perspective, these are done as a last resort for specific cases that are allowed under the IRPA, under the Act.
No, I will repeat my question. A mistake has been made. Will somebody be accountable? Will somebody has to resign? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, if I can, 2 points quickly. First, decisions are made based on the information available. It's clear in this case that the decision made wasn't the one that we wanted. And Mr. Chair, I'll just say, I'm the Deputy Minister of IRCC. I am accountable. I'm not going as far as offering my resignation by answering, but I want to make clear, Mr. Chair, I'm accountable. It happened under my watch. I'm very motivated to tightening the controls within Canada's immigration system. I've been on the job 6 weeks. I see lots of opportunity to improve. So I'm both accountable and I'm not offering my resignation today.
Okay, so a mistake has been made, and you said that you're accountable. So what steps will you take to take on that responsibility?
There are a number of changes that are being made across IRCC. First, in relation to visa processing.
No, I'm talking about you personally.
Sorry, MP Al, if you want to split half, it's now the time to do so. I don't want to interfere in your sharing of the time, but there's 2 minutes and a half past.
Well, thank you very much for that, Chuck. So my colleague, Rhonda, asked just earlier that were you ever briefed about Mr. Taj prior to him ever coming and landing into Vancouver? You guys did not answer the question. Yes or no? Were you ever briefed? Could you please answer the question, were you ever briefed?
About who?
About Mr. Taj that landed in Vancouver, the case that was going on that you referred to that's going on this week. And you didn't know which date either.
I'm not aware anybody landed in Vancouver. Sorry.
Sorry, my bad. It was Toronto. It was Toronto. The IRGC agent that landed in Canada. Were you ever briefed on that case prior to them landing in Canada, in Toronto? It's a yes or no. Either minister. Could one of you please just say if you were ever briefed?
So the individual in question was in a plane on the way. The visa or the document was canceled, and officials made those decisions, right? That's in their purview.
Minister, you're the minister for a reason. You're the minister for a reason. You're at the head of the table. You call the shots at the end of the day. That's what your position is. You are responsible for someone coming into this country when they're not supposed to be, when they were inadmissible. They're not supposed to be here. You said that there are multiple steps that take to get to here. What went wrong under your watch? Because at the end of the day, it is under your watch, Minister.
So again, people are screened for security before they arrive, when they land, and when they are inside Canada at any point in time. So at any point in time in those situations, if something arises that is wrong, then it's either IRCC or CBSA or a conjunction of both that takes.
Minister, your job is to make sure that you serve Canadians here. Canadians could have been potentially put at risk because of this mistake. So why was there no prior stance before this? When you said that you were briefed, is what I understand. What steps did you take that failed? And the reason why this person was allowed on Canadian grounds at a single point, be allowed entry, not into the country, but they were at a port of entry. What went wrong?
Sorry to cut you off,